On day 218, I want to talk about this idea of immense patience. Immense patience. Bob Goff, I always reference him, Christian mentor, author, really awesome guy. He talks about this idea that we must intentionally observe in our life just this pursuit of immense patience, because we live in a messy world with difficult people and delays and things that totally go against the grain of us moving through life efficiently. And he has this quote, Bob Goff says, "Immense patience is required so that we can trust God that he is doing something great, even when everything feels delayed." So even when everything's not in our timeline, we're still trusting that God is working. There's this story that Bob highlights where he's had so many things that have happened in his life, where he worked years on building this cabin for his family to vacation in, and I think it's up in the Alaska area, and it burnt down right after he finished building it. Or he had this new boat that he bought, and it was out there in the middle of the water anchored, and then he came in the next day from the house to go get into the boat, and it had sunk because I think they had messed up some patchwork on it. And then one time, this little old lady that was 90 years old T-boned his new Jeep that he got and totaled it. And she was just so sweet and couldn't see very well. And he talks about all these times where he had a plan and it immediately just went up in smoke, and how his human side just absolutely wants to freak out, as we all would, but he just tries to truly demonstrate immense patience in his life. So I'm gonna bring one other example that's a little bit longer of a story that he talked about that I think is really funny. I think he travels a lot for work and for speaking engagements, and there was one time he got into a city at 4 a.m. and he was really exhausted and had already had a thin patience from maybe some of the delays that happened on the trip in. So he gets in at 4 and he finally orders an Uber, and it was supposed to take him to his hotel. And instead of ordering just one of those singular Ubers that takes you from point A to point B, there's this community Uber option that he accidentally clicked on to where it'll fill up the vehicle with other stops. So he gets in the Uber, and then it starts kind of going out of the direction that he needed to go to his hotel. And I think first he thought he was going to go, get robbed or murdered, but instead there's another person that they stop and pick up. And then that's when he realizes, oh my gosh. And he asked the Uber driver how many more stops, and I think the Uber driver said 3 more stops, and it ended up being another hour delay. And he said in that moment he really wanted to just go ballistic because nothing was working out, but instead he just, at each stop, he would say, "Hey, get in," and strike up a conversation with each person in the vehicle. And he was just actively choosing to be patient in that moment, even if he didn't want to be. And it takes me back to a quote that we've talked about in the past, that we need to literally act enthusiastic to be enthusiastic in our life. We need to act enthusiastic to be enthusiastic. And sometimes that's hard, but if we're actively pursuing it, we can achieve patience and enthusiasm even when we don't feel like it. It's the same with reading the Bible, even when our human minds are telling us that we shouldn't, or going to the gym, even if we don't feel like it. That's the difference between discipline and motivation. Is I don't wake up motivated every day. Most people, most days, are not extremely motivated, but the discipline is what gets you there. And then once you get going with, whether it's that Uber example with Bob Goff, or whether it's reading your Bible or going to the gym, once you get started, it's a lot easier to finish that workout or to finish reading the Bible. It's the getting started that's the hardest part. And that's where you're not always motivated to get started, but if you're disciplined and you can get started with said thing, then typically by the time you're done working out or reading the Bible, whatever it is, you're really thankful and happy, and you're on a high from doing it. So let the discipline get you started, and don't just rely on motivation. I would get nothing done if I just only relied on motivation. So having said all of that, I'm going to read from the book of James chapter 5, verses 7 through 11. It says, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord is coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord is coming near. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. So again, that passage, it's not about just passively waiting for things, but it's purposeful and anchored waiting. It points to this farmer who waits for rain, the prophet who waited for justice, and then that was the second one, and then Job, who endured the unimaginable pain by losing everything before witnessing this restoration. So in closing, just remember that we have a choice to either force the timeline or to trust God, who actually controls the timelines in our life. And we need to just continue to step into that, even when it's so hard. There's some things in my life I've been waiting for and excited about, and a couple of them have been delayed. And even though it's not my timeline, I just have to actively choose, even if I don't feel like it, to trust in God and his timeline and not in my own. Because God is strategic, and he's developing us, he's shaping us into the character that we need. We just have to rely on him. So remember that as we continue to move through this week. That's day 218.